Hello and welcome to Scott's Invert. I'm Scott. You might see an invert in today's video. We're going to be looking at what I'm now considering one of the best substrates that I've been using of late. So I've tried a few out recently, different brands, different substrates, different topsoils, things like that. You all guys know I used to use Westmoreland's topsoil quite a lot, as well as Wix's own brand of topsoil. Now this one that I've been using currently seems to tick every single box. Irish peat moss was our favourite, but unfortunately for private use we can't have it anymore, although you might still be able to find it online while stocks last. As soon as those stocks are used up, we need to be moving over to a different type of substrate. And unfortunately, Irish peat moss has been the only substrate that I've been able to find that eliminates mould and those horrible little mushroom growths. But anyway, let's go and have a look at the substrate and a couple of the enclosures that's been set up here for a couple of months. So firstly, let me show you a couple of enclosures which we set up straight after the previous show. So this one is a Tibetan wolf spider setup, and look how healthy the moss looks in that enclosure on top of this substrate that we're using. Now we'll give you the brand and the details for it towards the end of this video, but I just want to show you inside. Looks pretty good. So this is like a 50, 60, 65, 70% sorry, humidity enclosure, no mold, looking absolutely awesome. And if we look to the forward of the entrance there, the spiders actually dug some of the substrate out there as well. So this one is an absolute plus. And I think it's really important to show a high humidity one as well. So this was a recent centipede rehouse. And if you look, there's the watermarks, water bubbles in there, but where my thumb is actually mold. So to be a complete fair review of this substrate, let's go in and take a look. We seem to have a little bit of mold problem in there, but springtails would absolutely clear that up. On the back of the enclosure, there's a bit of moisture there, but tiny little bit of mold in the bottom left hand corner, and that is it. But the top, again, the moss is doing really well on top of this substrate. And I do think to eradicate the mold, springtails would absolutely do it. Now I'm going to do the water test. Now the water test involves us putting water in a corner of the enclosure and seeing if it goes right down to the bottom and then starts spreading out throughout the substrate. And we've only put a tiny bit in, and it certainly does. Look at that. That spreads out absolutely brilliantly. Again, the only downfall to this substrate was that mold, but again, springtails, we're going to sort the problem. And let's have a closer look at the actual substrate itself. So I'm going to put some in this empty pot and we're going to take a little look. It is quite damp when it comes out the bag. I'd say a good 60 to 70% humidity kind of substrate as soon as it comes out the bag, so we don't have to add moisture to it in a lot of circumstances. That lighter colorization in there is actually sand, which, especially with something like centipedes, helps the molting process, so that's only good. It also helps to aerate the actual substrate as well. But if you squeeze it together, it holds together pretty well. So you know if you put it into enclosure and tap it down every inch or so, you know it's going to hold those burrow shapes for when the spiders start digging down deep. And if we split it open a little bit, we can see fibrous material in there, which I do actually think some of it might be a cocoa type fibre, but I don't think it's cocoa fibre itself. And there is some sphagnum moss throughout as well. In fact, the only lumps I've ever found in this have been mainly from the sphagnum moss that's in it. But if we rub it together, rub it in our hands, it actually comes out into tiny particles. Fantastic for the very top of the substrate when we want to make those realistic feeling enclosures. I'm going to squeeze it now into this little ball, and I'm going to squeeze it to see how much water actually comes out. And you can see it holds all that water inside itself. That is pretty epic. I'm going to split it open. Look at that. Still very easy to burrow through, even if we did tampering it down a little bit extra hard. Spiders are still going to be able to get through it absolutely with ease. And just spread it around. It looks really nice as well. So it's not too dark, not too light. I think spiders' colours absolutely pop when they're going across it. But again, I mean, I love to use moss. And moss on the top of this substrate, it absolutely grows perfectly. But let's put the lid on and I'll tell you guys exactly what the name is. So let me show you what that substrate is. There is still nothing wrong in going out and collecting your own substrate, as long as we're several miles away from any kind of human machinery like cars, tractors, anything like that, and as far away from farmers' fields as we can, just in case they use things like pesticides. So this is the substrate that we are now using, Westland's bulb planting and potting mix. I find this straight out the bag to be at around 70 to 80% humidity. I find it really holds that humidity really well and releases it over a slow period of time. And as you can see by me putting the water in, when the water goes in, it certainly spreads across the whole of the substrate really easy. And what that indicates to me is that that water can then go through the whole substrate, create that humidity that we desperately need in a very short period of time. Now, I did show you the enclosure with those bits of mould in. So when we use a peat-free substrate, that's always going to happen. If that had been coir, you could absolutely imagine that mould in there would have been about 1,000 times worse than what you see. So the way we eradicate that is by getting springtails in every single enclosure that we use with this. And to be perfectly honest with you, we should be putting springtails in any enclosure that we are keeping, whether it's a humidity dependent species or when we're keeping humidity of literally 50% plus, we should be thinking about putting springtails in there. Those springtails, that small amount of moss, that mould, that's happened over a period of time, would almost be completely eradicated with springtails. So the Westland bulb mix for this one, 10 litres was £3. So it is a little bit more expensive than the likes of the Wix's topsoil or any of the topsoils really that's out there, and it's also a little bit more expensive than the Irish peat moss. But as I said at the start of this video, the Irish peat moss, we can't really be sustainable. It is destroying the countryside over in Ireland. So the more we use of it, the more we are putting our name on that destruction. So that is what I'm going to be using for the foreseeable future, alongside the springtails, all important springtails to go in with it, which the springtails hopefully will mop up the spider waste, as well as hopefully eradicating any of the mold issues that we could come across, like I showed you in today's video. I haven't found any mushroom growth at all with this potting compost, but if I do, I'll certainly let you know. If you use this compost, let me know down in those comments. It's one of those composts where you could easily add, let's say, a little bit of desert sand extra to it or anything else. And I think for a kind of a go-to substrate, it's absolutely perfect. If you want it to be a little bit drier, all you've got to do is take out some of the substrate, leave it quite thinly spread out, and I'm sure it will dry in a couple of days, and then we've got that drier substrate to use as well. Anyway, let me know down in those comments the substrates, the name brands that you guys use, especially those of you that are overseas. Be really interested to find out. And as always, hit that subscription button, and I shall see you again on the next one.